From a dermatology perspective, why is it so important for whether you're an acne sufferer, anti-aging, or really anyone to be protecting their skin no matter what the season?
I see acne patients all day long. If it's not an acne patient, it's an older patient who has either pre-skin cancers or skin cancers. Whether sunscreens themselves, in our opinion, the best defense against developing skin cancers. During the winter, during the summer, I don't care when it is, I want people using sunscreen. I want my acne patients using sunscreen.
Working with acne sufferers, as we do here on the Clear Skin Chronicles and over in the Clear Skin Solution, skincare is one of the biggest topics. And alongside skincare is also how can we be resurfacing our skin? We're dealing with the post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, the boss scars, all of the different scarring that comes alongside with acne. So we thought we would bring in the expert today. Joining us, we have Dr. Michael Gold, board-certified dermatologist, founder and medical director of Gold Skincare Center, Advanced Aesthetics Medical Spa, the Laser and Rejuvenation Center, and the Tennessee Clinical Research Center. So you have just a few things going on over there, Dr. Gold.
Just a tad.
Just a tad. So needless to say, you have seen a lot of skin cases over your career.
Yeah, so I've been a dermatologist for over 35 years now. So I've been doing it a while, see a lot of people every day when I'm in clinic. My team sees a lot of people. We do a lot of clinical research. We have our hands in running meetings around the world. I go and speak at meetings on a regular basis on a variety of topics. I like to think I'm close to the pulse of what's going on in today's world. And contributing where I can.
I love that. So thank you for coming on and contributing today, because things that we wanted to kind of break down today was how can we be adjusting our skincare routines in the winter, because we do need to be shifting what's going on, especially for those that live in the colder climates as well. And I also thought we could talk about the seasonal skin resurfacing, because for our audience, which are acne sufferers, a lot of them do look to skin resurfacing for the dark marks and the acne scarring. And there is some more ideal times of the year. So I kind of wanted to break all of that down today, but let's kind of rewind a little bit and let's go through why can winter be tough on our skin overall, not just for acne sufferers, but for everybody?
First of all, what we see in dermatology, or what I see in my clinic a lot during the fall, right? We're still in fall, I guess. We see, maybe not in Canada, but like where I am, we're going to be 70 some odd degrees today. And by the midweek, we'll be in the 40s or 50s. So we see this changing of temperature from hot to cold to hot before it all gets cold, right? And so that plays havoc on people's skin on a regular basis, especially not as much in the acne world, but more in the eczema, sensitive skin, dry skin world, where I see my eczema patients flare much more because of the change in temperature. That's a factor in why some of these people flare. But even in the acne world, and again, just as a premise for everybody to understand, I probably had the second or third worst case of acne I've ever seen in my career. Until I was 16 years old, when I actually was treated by the guy that invented Retin-A. And he changed my whole life. And it's probably why I'm a dermatologist. So I take acne really seriously.
During the wintertime, obviously, we want to be hydrating, keeping the skin, because if we're drying it out, that's not going to be fun on top of dealing with the acne. So are there specific ingredients that you're really wanting your patients to be utilizing in the skincare for their face?
The things that resonate the most skincare-wise is this ingredient that we call ceramides, right? Because they are a group of products or ingredients that repair the barrier, fix the barrier a little bit, and that hydrate exceptionally well. I think it's really helpful for patients to use the appropriate acne cleansers, acne lotions that they can put on afterwards. And obviously sunscreen still applies to the acne prone patient. Because we need, especially if you're in Canada and you're skiing in the winter or whatever, snowboarding or cross country skiing, you have to wear sunscreen. That sun off the snow is really bad. And there's a lot of people that don't think that way, right? It's like, it's winter, I don't need my sunscreen. And they go out, and especially those on vacation that I know that go up there to ski and so forth, they don't even think about sunscreen. But it's a mandatory thing all year round. But when people are in the winter, especially, don't remember, we need to constantly remind them. When I'm dealing with moisturizers in dermatology, that we like to tell people, you can buy whatever you want. And you can get on the internet and go search for, the latest crazed moisturizer. But in dermatology, we stick with the companies that we work with, right? Companies that have invested in dermatology, that actually do clinical work to show that their products are useful at all different times of the year. It's not necessary that I recommend this product, but I recommend products that have these things in it, and companies that invest in actually proving what they're talking about, right? And so that's helpful to me.
And going into the skin of the winter, we see a lot of people utilizing the retinols. Maybe they're using, acids. Is there a way that they can be utilizing these throughout the wintertime without over drying?
Oh, sure. I mean, so again, retinols, tretinoin, these are some of the standards, not only for acne, but for anti-aging as well. And so using a moisturizer with these is critical. And during the winter, it's the same to me as the summer, but you may need to apply a little more moisturizer in the winter. So again, when we're telling acne patients to use a retinoid or a tretinoin or something like that, they put it on at night. And we used to teach them to wait 30 minutes and then put a moisturizer on your skin before, and you do this at bedtime. So whatever. My patients put their medicine on, go to bed. So I'm more of a realist today. You put the medicine on, you wait a minute or two, then you get the moisturizer right on top of it. That way I know you're not going to wait 30 minutes and fall asleep while you're waiting. So I think some of the teaching from when I was in training and young in practice, you have to be more realistic. People are busy. People, need to do things quickly. And, instead of them skipping doing something, I'd rather them just do it and put something else on top of it. We know we're not harming the effects of the retinoid at all by putting moisturizer on top of it.
And, you did briefly mention that the SPF in the winter is just as important as the summer, especially if you are, going skiing, you're going snowboarding, you're doing winter hiking, all of these wonderful things to be doing through the colder months. But it's still so important to be protecting the skin from UV rays. And from a dermatology perspective, why is it so important for whether you're an acne sufferer, anti-aging, or really anyone to be protecting their skin no matter what the season?
I see acne patients all day long. If it's not an acne patient, it's an older patient who has either pre-skin cancers or skin cancers. So I think this morning I've already cut out 14 skin cancers, right? And so I live in Tennessee, which is farming, right? If it's not in Nashville, which is country music, it's out where people have done farming their whole life, and they have never worn sunscreen. And so I see bad skin all year round, whether sunscreens themselves, which get beat up a lot because of some of the ingredients and so forth, but they're still, in our opinion, the best defense against developing skin cancers. So, when I was a kid, there was no sunscreens. We just burned. And that was the cool thing, to have people, with the tan. But we learned quickly that our best defense that we can do is to use a sunscreen. Now, I always tell my patients I want an SPF of 50 or above, which is a broad spectrum UVA, UVB sunscreen. Somebody that, I play a lot of golf when I have the opportunity. My number starts at 100 because I burn quickly. My wife can use a 50 because she could be out in the sun for whatever and never burns. So again, it just depends on your background and your genetics and all that kind of stuff. So minimum of 50 and as high as you can use that you're comfortable with. It still doesn't mean you're not going to get a little sun, and that's okay for you. But it's our best defense against sun damage, right? And so during the winter, during the summer, I don't care when it is, I want people using sunscreen. I want my acne patients using sunscreen. And I think what we've seen over the course of time, the younger generation, right? The 30-year-olds and so forth, especially when they have children, right? They are using sunscreens themselves and they are kicking it on their kids when they go to the pool or when they go on vacation, if they go skiing and so forth. So they get it now, where my generation had no idea. But we've learned that. And so again, we want people using sunscreen every day. Even in the car. And again, in the winter, that we forget about that, right? The sun reflecting off the ground, off the pavement, the sun comes, even though the windows on our car are quote unquote tinted, they're not going to protect us very much. So all those things are helpful.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important to remember that even in the winter, because it's that reflection off of the snow. Like here in Canada, you take your
Mhm.
dog for a walk. I've come back and I've definitely had a sunburn on my cheeks and my nose if I forget my SPF because of that reflection that you're getting. And it's almost like that double whammy from the sun hitting both angles.
Mm-hmm. And so that's that. I mean, that's obviously the concern, right? It's this bad coming off the sun itself, right on your skin, but that reflective ray is also pretty powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to be careful.
Talking about sunscreen, because I often see this when we're at the beach, is parents will lather up the whole family, right, including themselves. And then I never see them, they're going swimming. I never see them reapply, or majority of the families don't.
That's always a problem, right? One time putting it on, and again, you should put it on at least 30 minutes before you go out, right? Putting it on, if you're at the beach or you're whatever, and you put your sunscreen on as soon as you get there, you need to give it a little time to get absorbed and do its thing. We always teach that every few hours, especially if you're swimming, you need to reapply the sunscreen, because some of it will wash off in the water or wherever you are. Even the waterproof sunscreens still need to be reapplied.
That's what I was wondering with waterproof and with your clinical practice with acne as well, right? Because sometimes acne can definitely have a bacterial or fungal-like behavior and water. Have you noticed anything between the sunscreens with waterproof or non and the congestion in the skin?
We sort of say the same thing with our ingredient list. So we want it to be non-comedogenic, which means they don't form whiteheads and blackheads. They can be, non-acne forming. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things they say on it now. But I think, again, cheap brands are cheap and you don't necessarily know what you're getting. And if you stick with one of the, quote unquote, normal brands out there, you shouldn't go wrong with your facial sunscreens or whatever. So, that's just part of what we have.
So essentially, water should not be the first ingredient.
No.
Okay. I feel the same way. Look at that.
It's important to use ingredients. So again, when you're using sunscreens, especially acne prone patients, you want to make sure it's not heavy creams either. I'd much rather have my patients put on a lotion on their face that is compared to a heavy cream. Not that it makes a huge difference, but it's just something that I like.
And what's interesting, right, is for our clientele, we deal with a lot of millennials. So most of our clients are like 30 to 42-ish, and they're dealing with the adult acne alongside the fine lines in anti-aging. So when we're looking at that combination, having the SPF is really going to be two birds with one stone.
I always tell my millennial friends, don't always believe what you read on the internet either. I had actually had a millennial come in my office today with a big mole on his face. And he said, but I read on the internet, you can give me a cream and it'll go away. And I'm like, okay. And so it's like and he's like, but I know it'll work. And I'm like, no. And so sometimes you just, I think it's great that we have all this information at our hands, that you can get anything you want told to you on the internet. But I think we need to at least talk to somebody that has some experience in these things, and understand that dermatologists I may do something different than some of the dermatologists in Toronto or in Vancouver. But we're all trained to sort of look at the skin a certain way, and hopefully pick and choose the right way to take care of it. You know, that's what we try to do.
I'm sure you've heard your fair share of crazy things, patients coming in saying, Dr. Gold, I read this on the internet, but I thought I would share with you two of the craziest things that we have heard acne clients saying to us is, number one, the internet told them to use their own urine as a facial toner.
That's great.
And number two, to do a menstrual blood face mask. Those are the two top ones.
I've heard that one before. So again, I think what you're looking at is that especially with the menstrual blood thing, there's stem cells in that, right? And so almost like PRP without sticking you and getting blood and putting it on your skin. There are ways to do that medically versus being silly. Yeah, I mean, I hear of putting potatoes on the skin and other things. And yeah, I just sort of get blown away by what I hear sometimes. But again,
yeah. It's the internet. You don't need TikTok to be your skincare advisor.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But again, if you look in the social media world, I do a talk a lot these days on sort of the AI in dermatology and cosmetic work. And it's kind of mind-boggling to think that in the dermatology plastic surgery arena, at least here in the US, and I assume Canada is just the same, most of our patients come in, and you probably all know this, they've already been on the internet. They've already been on, but they also have been on TikTok and Instagram, and they think they have all the information they need. And again, it baffles me that there is no science, that they think about, but somebody's profiting off all this, right? And it's the buyer beware type of thing. Because if you think you can get instant gratification, again, if you're an acne sufferer, one of the first things I tell my patients, you're not going to be better tomorrow, right? This is not something I can fix tomorrow. It takes time. And then
can you repeat that one? Because we preach that a lot, right?
Acne does not go away in a day. If you're an acne sufferer, follow the advice of your doctors or your healthcare people that actually understand the process. And again, we have a lot of great things now for acne, right? We can use our chemical peels. We can use lasers. We have lots of acne treatments besides dealing with scarring and things like that. So I'm a big acne device guy. I probably have 4 or 5 different devices just for active acne. But at the same time, you treat active acne, you sort of prevent scarring. And so I think that's important.
So out of all the devices that you're using with your acne clients, and I think this is such a great addition to the acne treatment world, because Dr. Gold, you said when you were dealing with acne, they didn't have things like this where you could have been utilizing it. Everybody, because we deal with adult women. But what are some of your favorite of those types of tools that you're able to utilize for your patients?
So I do a lot of laser work, and I think, and what I like to categorize it into, there's 2 different kinds of acne lasers today. The one that sort of treats the pimples through destroying the bacteria, right? The bacteria that is associated with the acne. Most of the time, those devices work over time, right? You have to have a series of treatments, but they really work. So there's a device called the Aerolase Neo. There's a device called the Adva TX, which is a company called Advalite. They all work by targeting the bacteria. There's a device called the TheraClear. We have, as I said, and then you can use intense pulse light. So the BBL, the IPLs, they all have acne filters now that work exceptionally well for patients with acne. And then we have actually newer devices which target the sebaceous gland. So there's one in particular, there's 2 in the United States. I'm not sure. I think both are in Canada. One's called Avaclear and one's called Accure. Aviclear is what I use. It's a series of treatments. It targets the sebaceous glands, and the clinical trials that led to the FDA approval showed great clearing, after 3 treatments, even at a year. But again, there's subtleties. You just can't get the treatment. You got to do some other things in between to make it work even better that we've learned about. I guess the biggest issue with all those devices, it's cash. It's not covered by insurance here in the US. So I assume Health Canada is the same way. So all this sort of helps the skin. And we do see, especially in our kids, our young adults, but even in the adult female population, we are getting this rejuvenation effect at the same time. So all of these devices have a beneficial effect on the overall skin health, which I think is part of, what we're all looking for. But you don't need to have these, you don't need to suffer like we used to suffer. And then you were saying before, we got people that have, you have acne and then you have the red and brown spots post acne. We have devices that actually make all that go away. And so again, it's a cost, but it's a cost that works in most everybody. And I think, again, the healthcare providers have to be realistic as well. It's not a one and done treatment. None of these are. And we have to use the right things with them to make them work better. And I spend a lot of time trying to teach people how we use these devices and how we make them work to make people better.
So for us, we work with our clients for a minimum of 6 months. And, once they're done their time with us, they're like, my skin's clear, it's amazing. But now I have all of these dark marks, the hyperpigmentation. Some of them will have the scarring as well. And I think there's 2 parts to my question here. The first one is, we spend a lot of time explaining to our clients the difference between dark marks and scars, because so many of them use the word scar interchangeably, where what they're really talking about is dark marks when they're referring to scars, which would be the deep pitted, those boxcar, the ice pick scars. So can you kind of give an explanation of the difference between the 2?
So I call them splotches.
I love it. It's a great medical term.
Because what they are for the most part is, when you have a raised pimple, there's a lot of inflammation. When the pimple goes down, that inflammation is still around where I call the splotch, you call the dark mark. And so you got to be careful, at least I think, in how much bleaching you do to these things. Because again, if you actually look under the skin, to me, they're more inflammatory, that it just hasn't all gone away yet. If somebody has horrific acne scars, what are you going to do and how are you going to make them better, right? And so it's a journey. And so that's the name, that's the top of my slide, the acne journey.
Because it really is, right? Things we tell our clients all the time is, you can't Amazon Prime Clear Skin. It's not coming by the weekend because you have a big event coming up. It takes a lot of work. And, for our clients, we follow the same journey where it's like, we're working to get rid of the acne itself. And then we're going to be moving into how can we be looking at the scarring and the dark marks. So when it comes to those, the pitted scars or even the keloid scars, we're always referring those to a dermatologist, referring out to a medical esthetician, because, products aren't going to be able to go and treat these pitted and keloid scars.
It depends on how bad it is. It depends on the skill level of the provider doing it. That's going to, take care of it. But I would definitely make sure the person knows what they're doing, right? Because we're taking somebody who has damaged skin and trying to regenerate collagen under the skin at the same time lifting it up. And as you said before, there's all kinds of different scars. There's 4 kinds of acne scars. I don't care what they have. I just want to get them better. And most people say you can't treat ice pick scars. And I will promise you, with the right devices, we can make most of them get better too, compared to what we used to do. So the bottom line when we treat scars, for everybody that's listening, if a dermatologist or plastic surgeon tells you they'll make every scar disappear, leave their office. All right. We cannot promise 100% improvement. If you came to see me, I'll tell you that I will make 70 to 75% of your scars better. And when I make 85 or 90% better, you're really going to like me. But I don't promise 90% either. right? I always underestimate how good I am going to get you, because I can't necessarily get every scar to go totally away. So, again, I think some of us get a bad rap in the space because they tell people they're going to make everything get better, or that's what the patient hears or the client hears versus what reality is. And reality is I can't make every scar go away. But I have amazing technology now to make scars better, right? So we have lots of different lasers. So we have lasers that we call fractional lasers, whether we call non-ablative or ablative fractional lasers. We have that kind of technology. We have microneedling technology, and it comes in the form of a pen, which is no heat, but most of us will use radio frequency associated needling. And I'm a big fan of microneedling radio frequency. There's a device that I like to call it. We call it nanofractional, which is it's more of a pin technology than a needle technology, but it can get into the skin pretty nicely, and it heats up the area around it. And any heat delivered down into underneath the skin is going to cause new collagen formation, which is what you want. And this Venus Viva I did most of the FDA work on. I've done a lot of the FDA work on a lot of these, but this is one I did. And what we were able to show with those devices, they don't care about your color, right? They can be used on all skin types. And the results with a series of treatments show amazing results in scarring and in fixing acne scars. If you like, some people will take microneedling radio frequency and go deeper, and they make acne scars so better. So those are, the needling world right now is the hot world of technology, and they make the skin so much better, right? But again, you need a few treatments. And now we're throwing in something on top of it called exosomes, if you've never heard of exosomes.
I'm obsessed with exosomes. I'm so glad you brought it up.
I'm
You're
obsessed
speaking Katie's language here.
I'm obsessed with learning what they do more on the science side. So again, I get to work with every exosome company, and they all have the best things in the world. But what we do know about exosomes is they make the skin heal faster. Now, in this part of the world, you cannot inject exosomes. They're topically applied only. We have human-based here in the United States and plant-based. I'm not sure about Canada. I don't think you can have human-based anymore. I think that's going away.
Don't worry. I've been doing my research here about exosomes in Canada. So Dr. Gold, you might find me on your list of showing up there for a microneedling exosome.
But we know that they make the skin heal faster, right? That's a good thing with exosomes. There's a new, device, which is called Ultra Clear, which is a fiber resurfacing type of thing, but it's a 10-minute treatment, and doing that in exosomes. All this stuff works for acne scars. But again, you got to find the provider that understands how to deal with the acne scar patient. Those are a different breed than somebody that has a lot of sun damaged skin, who's older, that can take a week or two of downtime, which I still do to some people. But most of my patients, they can't take a lot of time off of work, or like we're on a call where we actually can see ourselves, right? They can't do this a lot. So we have to be cognizant of all that and how that plays out in our patients. But we have great tools at our disposal.
Can I ask you a question? For our friends at home, of course, not I, Mr. Gold. However, this is what I'd like to know. When we start to get the fine lines, or what I like to call more mature lines for, other people like myself, I have just recently started looking into microneedling, and I've been calling around and just inquiring because I want to, like you're like, I want to know the research behind it. I want to know what they offer. I want to know. And I was calling around and I said, okay, what about the microneedling without the PRP?
Well, you don't need PRP in microneedling. You need microneedling in a good skincare routine, right? And so again, maybe I'm just because I'm getting older in my career. Microneedling costs X dollars. PRP costs X dollars. You put them together, that's X plus X, right? And do you necessarily need it, right? But again, it's a benefit if you could do PRP on top of microneedling for rejuvenating the skin. You're going to see a benefit, right? One of my friends just finished a study here in the U.S. PRP on one side, exosomes on the other, post microneedling. All right, so it's not official yet, but it's definitely they both work, right? And so again, is it worth the cost of what the PRP is going to be when you can use exosome? But we can use just regular skincare as well, right? So we have amazing skincare products that work on fine lines around the eyes. We have great eye creams. And, again, before the exosome world, that's all we had. But most of those companies in dermatology have spent lots and lots of effort doing clinical trials to show the effect, right? We don't have them in the exosome world. We don't have PRP microneedling studies. We don't have a lot of them published. So these are just anecdotes that people are talking about. And until we get the science and the skin biopsies and all this other stuff, it's hard to tell you one is better than the other.
And that's why I was calling around. I'm glad you said that, because it just brings it in. Because I asked them, I'm like, can you get it without? They said, no, we don't offer that.
That's wanting to maximize profit over appropriate care, right? So
Yes.
Again, it should be part of the offering, if you will. We do this plus this, but if that's out of your price range, we can do this skincare on top of it. But our skincare is really expensive now. So, again, that's all part of it, but they have science behind it, at least the ones we work with, that, show this stuff works really well and you can do a lot of prevention, if you will, and a lot of repair. The earlier we can start repairing, the better it is for everybody, which is, again, why this world has gotten into what's called prejuvenation and all that other buzzword stuff now. But yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, and there's so many different options now. I feel like every, few months you hear about a new treatment going on. So I would love for you, Dr. Gold, is, being in this world, doing this day in and day out, the exosomes, the PRP, microneedling, all of these different treatments, where do you really see, the next, say, 2 to 5 years in this resurfacing world going?
I'm retiring. No,
I'm done. I'm out of here.
I think we're getting to the point where every time I think what else is out there and what's different, something else comes along. So again, we'll just use microneedling, and I'll mention the company or the device. So there's a device called Silpherm X, which may not be a household name like some of the other ones. This is a microneedling RF, radiofrequency microneedling device that does what every other one does, right? They have a second way to deliver the microneedling energy. So a lot less deep, but multiple pulses, firings at the same, boom, 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 instead of just down, right? And what it's doing, it's targeting the bottom layer of the epidermis, or the dermal epidermal junction, right below that, where your pigment is and where some of the vascular supply is. So we're taking our microneedling radiofrequency device, this Silpherm, and we're treating pigment. So we're treating melasma. We're treating hyperpigmentation. We're not curing any of the melasma. We're treating rosacea. We're treating things that make no sense in my brain with microneedling RF. It's just not part of what I was brought up on with this technology, but it actually works. And so now a lot of the companies are looking, how do we get into this bandwagon? So all of those things, so every time I think we're done, what else is there to do, right? What else is there? What's the next frontier? So, again, take your acne world for a minute. I would have never thought I could have a laser that targeted the sebaceous gland, right? So the only thing that ever targets the sebaceous gland is isotretinoin. Accutane or whatever you call it, Roaccutane, whatever it's called in Canada. I think it's probably called Accutane. But it has a lot of problems and a lot of side effects, and you can't give it to, women can't get pregnant, and there's minimal but significant suicide problems that we got to deal with. But it's discussion point with every patient. But we have a laser now that targets and destroys the sebaceous gland. That's a different thing in my world. So I think as much as I think we're done, there are people out there looking at how do we do things even better. Those are people smarter than me. But you're looking, what's the next thing out there, right? So I was very fortunate to be one of the 2 doctors that were the testing centers for Clarisonic, if you remember Clarisonic. And so if you could have told me you could take a sonic delivery cleansing device and make $1 gazillion as a company off of it, I would have said you're crazy. And these people made $1 gazillion off of it, right? So, as I said, there are people out there smarter than me, and more power to them. And if I get to play with them and test them, then I'm a happy camper.
Absolutely. And now, speaking of all of these different frontiers, of course, one of the biggest frontiers that's been in our society in the last year and a bit has been AI. So how do you see AI impacting or even contributing to your world that you're in?
AI is here. AI is scary in my world. Well, it's scary in my world. So where I think AI in dermatology plays a great role. Again, I'm working with a company. It's called OVO. It's out of California. It's a camera system. You stand in front of a camera, and it's a 360 wraparound camera that takes a mapping of every mole on your body, right? And then with a couple 100,000 images that it's associated with, it will give me an idea of what's good, bad, or indifferent. And then I can watch people and I can take care of them if I need to. But I always tell people, if my eye tells me after 35 years, and with training, it's 40 now, if I think it's bad, it's going off your skin. And if you don't want me to take it off the skin, you'll sign a medical waiver saying that Dr. Gold, said this needed to go and you don't want it. So I don't like AI. I think that's a great little tool for AI. AI in aesthetics is here, but again, it's telling you what you think you need versus what I think you need, right? And I think I'm better at that than you, but I think if it's done appropriately, these are some of the things that may help you if you do ABCD, talk to your healthcare provider. But the scariest part of AI for me is data security, right? How do we keep the data? You get a scan done, and the computer tells you this, and then where that data goes somewhere, and and all of a sudden that data is in somebody else's hand, and you have your personal information is there. I get nervous about all that stuff in AI. I think protection and privacy and all that kind of stuff is where I get very nervous.
It is a very scary concept, and hopefully, we can see avenues where it can be utilized well, and then maybe some laws put in place on how we can secure people's privacy a little bit better.
Right.
All right. So this has been super informative. I know everybody listening, because like we said, we got a lot of millennials listening. It's acne, anti-aging, and so many of our clients are all about going and getting all of the lasers and the microneedling. So I'm so glad we were able to bring you on today, Dr. Gold, to really get the rundown.
My pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity. Okay.
We loved it. All right, everybody. That was another episode here at the Clear Skin Chronicles. We'll see you again next week.